Have you ever looked at the chaos around us? Devastating floods, earthquakes, wildfires, global unrest, and wondered if it's all leading to something greater? What if these aren't random events but signs of a long foretold prophecy? What if they're warnings of the end of times, as described in the Bible? Today, we'll uncover the truth behind the biblical signs of the apocalypse, examining how the events unfolding in the world mirror the prophecies written thousands of years ago. Are these coincidences? Or are we living in the final chapters of human history? Meet Lenara, an ordinary woman in an extraordinary time. She wasn't religious and didn't believe in ancient prophecies. But as she saw the world changing, the signs began to align with the warnings she had once heard as a child. Was it possible the apocalypse was real? Her journey begins in denial and skepticism, but quickly takes a turn as she's confronted with undeniable evidence. As we follow her story, you'll find yourself asking, are we truly prepared for what's coming? And most importantly, what would you do if you knew the end was near? Lenara's life was as ordinary as it could be. She lived in a bustling city, working a steady job and enjoying weekends with friends. Like most people, she scrolled through news headlines without much thought. Floods in one country, wildfires in another, political tensions escalating everywhere. It all seemed like just another day in the modern world. But something changed one evening. As she watched a documentary on global disasters, she noticed an eerie connection. The documentary mentioned an unprecedented increase in earthquakes and weather anomalies. The words stirred a memory from her childhood, stories her grandmother had told her about the signs of the end. Lenara shook off the thought, dismissing it as a coincidence. Still, the idea lingered. She remembered snippets of biblical teachings, wars and rumors of wars, nations rising against nations and famines. The next day, she decided to dig deeper. What she found left her shaken. Lenara came across a video of a pastor discussing Matthew 24, where Jesus describes the end times. The pastor pointed out how many of these events were happening now. Global pandemics, the erosion of morality, and the rise of false prophets. It felt like a checklist being marked off one by one. Could these be the signs her grandmother had warned her about? Yet, Lenara couldn't bring herself to believe. How could ancient writings possibly relate to the modern world? Surely these were just natural cycles or human mistakes. But as more news stories emerged, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening. Lenara's world was comfortable, predictable, but she was beginning to see cracks in the foundation. The question wasn't just about whether the signs were real. It was about what they meant for her and everyone else. But what happens when you can no longer ignore the signs? Lenara's life was about to change forever. One night, Lenara had a vivid dream. In it, she stood in the middle of a barren wasteland. The sky was dark and thunder roared above her. She heard voices, many voices, whispering the same words. The time is near. Startled, she woke up in a cold sweat. It was just a dream, she thought. Or was it? The dream unsettled her deeply. Unable to sleep, she decided to revisit the Bible, a book she hadn't opened in years. She turned to the book of Revelation, a section she remembered being filled with strange and terrifying imagery. As she read, she was struck by how closely the events described mirrored what was happening in the world. In her search for answers, Lenara reached out to her childhood friend Clara, who was deeply religious. Clara listened intently as Lenara shared her fears and discoveries. Clara explained that the signs weren't meant to instill fear, but to awaken people to the truth. These are warnings, Clara said, but they're also invitations to prepare spiritually and seek God's guidance. Lenara was torn. Part of her wanted to dismiss everything as mere coincidence. Another part of her couldn't ignore the evidence piling up. The idea that these events were foretold thousands of years ago felt both absurd and undeniable. Clara suggested they pray together and study more of the Bible's teachings. Lenara hesitated. She wasn't sure if she believed in prayer or even in God. but something inside her compelled her to try. That night, as Clara prayed aloud, Lenara felt an unexpected sense of peace. It was as if, for the first time, she wasn't facing these questions alone. Still, doubts lingered. What if she was wrong? What if these were just random occurrences and she was overthinking everything? The internal conflict weighed heavily on her, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't stop now. Lenara accepted the challenge, but was she truly ready for what was coming? The trials ahead would test her in unimaginable ways. Lenara decided to take a leap of faith and dive deeper into the world of biblical prophecy. She spent her evenings researching scriptures and comparing them with modern events. The process was both enlightening and overwhelming. She learned about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, symbols of conquest, war, famine, and death. What struck her most was how these themes mirrored current global crises. But stepping into this new reality came with its own set of challenges. As Lenara began sharing her discoveries with friends and family, she faced ridicule. "You're being dramatic," one friend said. "Natural disasters have always been around," another argued. Her parents dismissed her concerns, saying she was letting fear cloud her judgment. Lenara felt isolated, yet she couldn't turn back. The more she studied, the more convinced she became that the world was moving towards something unprecedented. She found accounts of increasing wars and rumors of wars, just as Jesus had described in Matthew 24. Nations were arming themselves at an alarming rate, and global tensions seemed to rise with each passing day. The early trials were not only external. Internally, Lenara battled waves of doubt and fear. Was she becoming obsessed? Was it all just a coincidence? Every time she thought about giving up, another news story would surface. Another flood, another earthquake, another war breaking out. It felt as if the earth itself was crying out, just as the Bible had foretold. Lenara's first small victory came when Clara introduced her to a community of believers who shared her concerns. Through online forums and local gatherings, Lenara found others who were studying biblical prophecies. They didn't mock her questions. Instead, they provided guidance and encouragement. This newfound community gave her strength, but it also presented new challenges. Some people in the group were overly focused on predicting exact dates for the apocalypse, something the Bible warns against. Lenara had to navigate through these distractions and stay grounded in her search for truth. The small steps she took outside her comfort zone began to transform her. She started journaling her thoughts, praying regularly, and even attending church services for the first time in years. These practices gave her a sense of direction she hadn't felt in a long time. Still, the path ahead was unclear. Lenara knew she was only at the beginning of her journey. The early trials had tested her resilience, but she sensed that the greatest challenges were yet to come. The early trials were only the start. What would happen when Lenara faced the greatest challenge of her life? Lenara's journey took a dramatic turn when she encountered one of the most chilling signs yet. A global event that mirrored a key prophecy in the book of Revelation. A major world leader emerged, gaining an unprecedented level of influence and power. The media praised this leader as a unifier, someone who could solve the world's problems. But to Lenara, something about this figure felt off. She remembered reading about the rise of the Antichrist, described as a charismatic and deceitful leader who would promise peace but lead many astray. The parallels were unsettling. As Lenara delved deeper, she discovered reports of alliances forming between nations that had historically been enemies. These developments seemed to echo the prophecy of a one-world government, a hallmark of the end times. The external crisis was mirrored by an internal one. Lenara began to feel the weight of her newfound knowledge. She realized that understanding the signs wasn't enough. She had to act. But what could she do? She was just one person in a world of billions. Her breaking point came during a news broadcast of escalating conflicts in the Middle East, another key focus of biblical prophecy. The footage of destruction and suffering brought her to tears. For the first time, Lenara felt the full gravity of what she had uncovered. These weren't just abstract warnings, they were real events affecting real people. Lenara turned to Clara for support, confessing her fears and doubts. Clara reminded her that while the signs were meant to alert humanity, they were also a call to action. God doesn't reveal these things to scare us, Clara said. He reveals them to prepare us and to give us hope. It was in this moment of crisis that Lenara made a pivotal decision. She would no longer be a passive observer. She would use her voice to warn others, to share what she had learned, and to encourage people to seek their own understanding. The crisis is the moment that defines everything. Could Lenara find the strength to overcome what seemed impossible? Through her perseverance, Lenara discovered a profound truth. The signs weren't just warnings of doom, but also reminders of God's promises. She found hope in scriptures that spoke of redemption and renewal, even amidst destruction. Lenara began sharing her journey online, creating videos and posts that explained the biblical signs of the apocalypse in simple, relatable terms. To her surprise, her message resonated with people worldwide. Many reached out to thank her, saying her story had inspired them to explore their faith. The treasure Lenara gained wasn't just knowledge, it was a deep sense of purpose. She realized that the true message of the apocalypse wasn't fear, but transformation. It was about preparing spiritually, reconnecting with loved ones, and living with greater compassion and urgency. Her newfound purpose transformed not only her life, but also the lives of those around her. Lenara's story became a beacon of hope, proving that even in the face of darkness, light could prevail. Now that Lenara had found her greatest treasure, how would she use it to rebuild her life? Would it be enough to face what lay ahead? Lenara's life was no longer the same. What had started as a search for answers became a transformative journey that reshaped her understanding of the world, her faith, and her purpose. The signs she had once feared now served as a reminder of the bigger picture, a divine plan unfolding, calling humanity not to despair but to awaken. With this new perspective, Lenara devoted herself to living a life of meaning and preparation. She deepened her spiritual practices, spending time in prayer, reading scripture, and seeking guidance from her church community. She also focused on rebuilding relationships that had been strained by her journey. Her honesty and passion began to soften the hearts of her loved ones, some of whom started asking their own questions about the signs of the times. Lenara realized that her mission wasn't to convince everyone that the apocalypse was imminent. Instead, it was to encourage people to reflect, to seek their own answers, and to prepare spiritually for whatever the future might hold. She often quoted a verse from Matthew 24:44. "So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him." Her impact went far beyond her immediate circle. The videos she had started posting reached a global audience. Comments flooded in from people who felt lost, scared, or confused about the events happening around them. Lenara's calm and compassionate approach resonated deeply. She reminded people that the signs weren't just about destruction, they were about renewal and hope. Lenara's story didn't end with a sense of finality, but with a new beginning. She saw the world differently now, not as a place descending into chaos, but as a place undergoing a profound transformation. While the apocalyptic signs were alarming, they were also a call to action, a chance for humanity to return to its roots of love, faith, and unity. Her personal transformation inspired others to take their own steps toward a more meaningful life. Some found faith for the first time. Others reconnected with beliefs they had long abandoned. The ripple effect of her journey was undeniable. As Lenara stood on the balcony of her apartment one evening, looking out at the city lights, she thought about how far she had come. The fear and uncertainty that had once consumed her had been replaced with a quiet confidence. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she was ready for it. And now, her story serves as a reminder for all of us. The end of times isn't just about the end. It's about what we do with the time we have left, how we choose to live, love, and prepare. Lenara's journey challenges us to ask ourselves, are we ready for what's to come? This was Lenara's journey, but what about yours? What would you do if you knew the end was near? Do you have the courage to prepare and make the most of the time you have? Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the biblical signs of the apocalypse. Lenara's story is just one perspective on a topic that touches all of us in different ways. If her journey resonated with you, take a moment to share this video with your friends and family. Someone out there might need to hear this message today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We're committed to bringing you thought-provoking content like this. Check out the pinned comment below for exclusive resources and further insights into today's topic. Finally, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think about the signs we discussed? Have you noticed any of them in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.